Shabbat shalom, everybody. Rabbi, that's what it is in Hebrew. Rabbi Shmuel, Rav Shmuel, Rabbi Stephen with you with this week's 10-minute Torah. So once again, as always, thank you for listening in. Hope you are enjoying or have enjoyed, depending on when you see this, your Thanksgiving. We Jews are fortunate. We get to have two Thanksgivings. One is Thanksgiving Day at the end of November. And of course, prior to that, we have our Sukkot, which is a whole week of Thanksgiving. So it's very nice. Speaking of which, I was honored to be a keynote speaker at a recent InterFaith event that happened in my area, happened in Menifee. And there is a group of pastors and ministers that have welcomed me into their fold. And this is now, as the name suggests, InterFaith. And every year they do an evening of gratitude. Now, this has kind of gone through an evolution. And we've seen in the past not few years, but maybe decades, there's been kind of a shift, a change shift, which, I, as a Jew and as a Judean and as a rabbi, as a Jewish rabbi, I welcome very much. It seems like our Jewish relationships with our Christian brothers and sisters have really taken off. A lot of them, especially in my area, support what's going on in Israel. They support Israel. They support us. And we welcome that. And I make sure that when I attend events like this, and I have been fortunate to attend a few of them, that I thank them for that. And I think that's important. Just like this situation that's going on at Trader Joe's. They've been the victim of, there's been attempts to denigrate Trader Joe's and boycott their goods, since they buy things from Israel. They have kosher chicken, they have challah, they have Israeli products. And there's been an attempt to boycott because of what Israel is allegedly doing in Gaza. And the rest of us are just kind of boycotting it. We're going in, and I recently bought some kosher chicken, very good. I enjoyed it, and some kosher pasta, kosher granola. So it's very nice. Okay, let's talk about this week's portion. Vayetzei, and he went out. So this is the story that starts out, the parsha that starts out with Jacob on the way, taking a break. He settles for the night, anoints a rock because he sleeps there, and he sees the vision of angels going up a ladder and down a ladder to heaven, sulam, which, by the way, sulam is also the word they use when we finish a tractate of Talmud. We're coming up on that, Bava Metzia, in a little while. It's a learning experience because we're taking a ladder up to divine information, or however you want to look at it. And this is purported to be the beginning of the institution of the Mariv service, because Jacob, prays when he gets there, and it's night. So there it is. But in our triennial portion, we have Jacob he's on the run, of course, from his brother Esau, who allegedly accuses him of stealing the birthright, forgetting that he traded away for a bowl of red lentil soup. And he's going to his uncle Laban, who eventually becomes his father-in-law, because he meets Rachel by a well, falls in love with her. She brings him home. And Laban, of course, sees dollar signs or shekel signs or gold and silver signs, whatever. Finds out, of course, that Jacob is not as wealthy as his grandfather might have been. So he stays and works for him, works 7 years, of course, to win the hand of Rachel. And Laban switches his older daughter, Leah, for Rachel, on the presumption that in that area of the world, the older daughter always gets married before the younger daughters. So he does his honeymoon with her for 7 days, and then he marries Rachel, agrees to work for another 7 years. And then Jacob goes to Laban and says, I've worked for you for 14 years. Time to take my family and leave. Aside from the fact he accuses Laban of cheating him or changing their agreement, is the verbiage, hundreds of times. Okay? Well, Laban says, work for me for another 7 years. Now, this accusation doesn't happen until after this next 6 years or so. So it's been 20 years that Jacob's been working for Laban. The first 14 years, 7 years each for the hand in marriage of each daughter, and 6 years to help Laban out because Laban has now amassed a lot of herd, a lot of cattle, a lot of flocks. I don't know if there's actually any cattle there. No, I haven't seen anything about bulls, oxes, or cows, which are cattle. It was more flocks, goats and sheep. And he devises a scheme where certain specific colored animals are born, whereas the white and the plain white and the black are not, with the poles, and he discolors them. And the down-to-earth explanation is that when the female sheep and rams went, or goats went to water them, drink water, they saw the poles, they were startled by it, and that's when the males mounted them and got them pregnant, and now they have DNA. You remember what was it? I want to say Punnett square. Remember the genetic squares where you have the 4 squares and each parent contributes one gene? Now you remember, right? And lo and behold, he amasses a fortune of these discolored sheep, takes off with them, leaves. Laban chases after him and accuses him. He said, "What'd you do? You took my daughters, my sons." And of course, the daughters are like, "Our father traded us for what? For your work. That's all we were to him. Just, chattel, just something to trade." And they're happy to get away from him because now they got a life. They got a life with Jacob. They have sons. They have a daughter, Dinah. And they want to be their own family. They want to be away from his influence. And I think that's really kind of the crux, as I see it, of this particular triennial portion. Jacob wants to be away from this negative influence. Laban and his family and his servants and his workers are all pagans. And the idea, folks, we reiterate this. The idea is not that people worship a block of wood. So what? Who cares, right? Worship whatever you want. It's the activities that go with it. Because they revere nature, and the idea is to control the natural forces that they see as gods, and they do crazy things like worship trees, commit human sacrifice. It's absurd, and that's why this whole idea of the one true God with divine justice was such a revolution at that time. People, as we see the lineage from Adam and Eve and Noah and the propagation of our human species, we see that people had lost contact with Hashem, and they rather, got into this whole ego thing about controlling nature, and hence we have idolatry and paganism. Jacob wanted to be away from that. He wanted that birthright, the one that he, I'm going to say it, traded from Esau, his twin brother. And he wants this birthright. He wants to go continue the legacy of his father Isaac, his grandfather Abraham. And he goes off. He wants to take his family, wants them to be his own family, doesn't want to be working for someone, in modern terms, wants his own business. So he takes off. And basically, this is the start. Think about it. It's the start of Israel. So Israel, as we're going to find out, is really the other name of Jacob, but it also refers to the nation of Israel, Jacob's descendants. We have his 12 sons who became the princes of 12 tribes. And they went to Egypt, and then, we know what happens. They get released, they get freed, and Moses leads them, and we gain God's Torah, God's law. Now, Torah is called God's law, but it's also God's teaching. And that's the way a lot of sages prefer to refer to it. They prefer that description because a law is something, okay, you have to obey. All right, do we have to obey the commandments? Yes. But they're more than commandments. There's God's teaching. If I tell you don't cross the street in the middle of the road, you'll get run over. Okay, maybe that's a law, but it's also a teaching because you'll get hurt, right? So there it is. And Israel, or Jacob, as he's still known, wants his family to be away from that. He wants them clear, wants to be able to develop this, have his own family, influence his kids, which we will see he will do. Okay, I'm going to keep this below 10 minutes. Thank you, as always, for listening, and Shabbat Shalom. Hope your Thanksgiving is great, and we will see you soon.